The Arcanos Empire had long seen Earth as a forgotten relic, a planet whose time had passed, whose warriors were nothing but legends spoken in hushed tones. The galaxy had moved on, advancing with technology and power that Earth could never hope to match. To them, Earth was an afterthought. And when the Emperor of Arcanos decreed that the human race would be wiped from existence, it was nothing more than a formality. In a forgotten hangar, deep in Earth's underground military complex, Captain Amina Hayes stared at the hulking shape before her, the Juggernaut, a warship that had once been the pride of humanity, now rusted and abandoned. Its once pristine hull was pitted and scarred, its engines outdated, its weapon systems considered obsolete by the standards of the galaxy's most powerful empires. Yet to Amina, this ship was more than just a relic, it was a symbol of everything humanity had fought for. "Captain, the Arcanos fleet has entered Earth's atmosphere," her communications officer, Lieutenant Turner, said from the control console. "They're here to end us." Amina took a deep breath, her hand resting on the cold surface of the Juggernaut's bridge. The massive ship had sat dormant for years, its crew disbanded, its systems left to decay. But Earth had no choice now. They had no choice but to fight, to remind the galaxy what humanity was capable of. "They underestimate us," Amina muttered under her breath, her gaze unwavering from the ship's ancient control panel. "And they will pay for it." The thought of the Arcanos, an empire known for its unyielding superiority and unmatched technological advancements, made Amina's blood boil. Their flagship, Regal Ion, was a ship of unimaginable power, outfitted with energy shields that could withstand the most devastating of attacks and weapons that could reduce entire cities to ash. Yet, they were so confident in their power that they dismissed Earth's defenses as irrelevant. Amina clenched her fists, her resolve strengthening. If Earth had anything left, it was its spirit. Humanity had never been defined by the strength of its weapons alone, it was the strength of its will that had carried them through centuries of hardship, and it was the strength of that will that would see them through this fight. Amina strode to the command chair. "Turner, signal all units. We're not retreating. We fight, and we fight to win." The comms officer hesitated but nodded. "Understood, Captain." The Juggernaut's engines roared to life, their ancient power systems flickering as the massive warship began its ascent. The crew, a handful of seasoned soldiers, manned their stations, the tension palpable in the air. They knew that against the might of the Arcanos, their chances were slim. But they also knew that humanity didn't just roll over when faced with a fight. "Deploy the first defense wave," Amina ordered, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Let them come. We'll show them how wrong they are about Earth's power." The first wave of Arcanos fighters descended from the heavens, sleek ships with sharp angles and impossibly advanced weaponry. Their commanders, General Caltrius among them, sneered as they watched Earth's fleet scramble to position themselves in defense. The Arcanos' strategy was simple: overwhelm. Destroy Earth's forces in a matter of minutes. But Amina's strategy was far more subtle. As the first round of enemy ships made their approach, Amina activated the Juggernaut's hidden weapon, an EMP pulse that would knock out the alien ship's most sophisticated systems. The alien ships, unaware of the trap, fired upon the Juggernaut, their lasers cutting through the air. But Amina wasn't interested in trading fire. Instead, she turned the tables. The Juggernaut absorbed the initial hits, its shield taking the brunt of the attack as its hull groaned in protest. Then, with precise timing, Amina pressed the button. A shockwave of electromagnetic energy rippled through the battlefield, and in an instant, the Arcanos fighters fell into chaos. Their weapon systems shorted out, their shields flickered and failed, and they were left vulnerable to Earth's counterattack. "Now!" Amina shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Fire everything we've got." The Juggernaut unleashed a barrage of missiles, targeting the now defenseless alien ships. The missiles struck true, blasting through the damaged hulls of the Arcanos fighters, sending them spiraling out of control as their engines exploded in fiery chaos. The remaining alien ships scrambled to regain control, but it was too late. The human fighters, though far less advanced, fought with a ferocity that caught the Arcanos off guard. Amina stood at the helm, watching as the tide of battle shifted. The Juggernaut was far from invincible, but it was holding its ground. Earth's forces, though outgunned, were showing the Arcanos just how hard humanity could fight when cornered. But just as the human forces began to believe they might have a chance, the sky darkened. A new wave of Arcanos ships arrived, bigger, deadlier, and far more advanced than the ones that had come before. Their flagship, Regal Ion, appeared on the horizon, a massive behemoth that dwarfed the Juggernaut by a factor of 10. "Captain, they're bringing in Regal Ion," Turner warned. "We can't win this. It's too powerful." Amina turned her gaze toward the massive alien ship, her jaw set. She knew that this would be the true test. The Arcanos had underestimated Earth once before, and they would do so again, to their peril. "We don't back down," Amina said firmly, her eyes burning with determination. "We fight, and we fight with everything we have. This is Earth's legacy." On board Regal Ion, General Caltrius looked upon the chaos with a cold smile. "They are brave," he said, his voice dripping with disdain. "But brave men die. Let them come. We shall crush them, as we have crushed all others before." Caltrius gave the order to fire. Regalion's weapons glowed ominously, charging with power, ready to unleash destruction. The sky lit up with energy blasts, each one capable of obliterating entire cities, but Amina was ready. She slammed her hand onto the Juggernaut's console, signaling the final stage of her plan. "Prepare the final strike," she commanded, her voice low and steely. "We won't stop until they know what it means to face humanity." The Juggernaut engaged its engines to the limit, rocketing toward Regal Ion with incredible speed. Amina's heart raced in her chest as she pushed the ship closer, knowing that this would be the moment that defined Earth's future. With a single, final blast, she aimed for the weak point she had identified earlier, the one place where Regalion's defenses were vulnerable. She had one shot. One chance. And she wasn't going to miss. The battle had only just begun. The Juggernaut was old, its systems not as fast as the alien ships, but the heart of humanity beat within it. And no matter how advanced the technology, there was one thing the Arcanos had forgotten to account for: the fire that burned in humanity's soul. The Juggernaut raced toward Regal Ion, engines at full power. It was a desperate move, a gamble, but Amina knew that if Earth was to survive, it would have to be with every ounce of strength they had left. Amina stood in the command center of the Juggernaut, staring at the status screen. Her fingers danced across the console as her mind raced, calculating, analyzing. The Arcanos' fleet was coming, a wave of overwhelming firepower, and they were just the first wave. She knew it. She could feel it. This was the beginning of something bigger, something that Earth was not prepared for. "Captain, the first wave is approaching," Lieutenant Turner's voice snapped Amina out of her thoughts. "They're closing in fast." Amina's hand tightened around the armrest of her chair. "Brace for impact," she ordered, her voice steady. "This is just the beginning. We can't show them fear." The Juggernaut groaned as its weapons systems came online, but it wasn't enough. The ship was old, its technology a relic of a time long past. Yet, Amina knew its potential. She wasn't depending on the ship's firepower to win this fight. She was depending on Earth's greatest asset, its cunning. "Deploy the fighters," Amina ordered, her voice calm, almost detached. "We need to give them a false sense of security." The hangar doors slid open, revealing Earth's small fleet of fighter jets. A handful of pilots manned them, a motley crew of soldiers who had seen everything from battlefields on Earth to distant planets. They were outclassed, outgunned, and outnumbered, but they had one advantage: their unpredictability. The Arcanos expected straight lines, predictable tactics, but that wasn't how humanity fought. Humanity fought with heart. The first volley from the Arcanos hit, and the Juggernaut shuddered under the force of the blasts. Sparks flew across the bridge, and Amina gritted her teeth, holding onto the console as the ship's defenses engaged. "Incoming fire from the left flank," Turner shouted. "Redirect shields," Amina barked. "Divert all power to starboard. We'll take them head on." The Juggernaut veered to the right, its massive form swinging away from the Arcanos' concentrated fire. The alien ships were relentless, sending wave after wave of missile barrages. Amina watched the status screen as the fighter jets launched, their small frames darting in and out of the enemy's sights, drawing fire away from the Juggernaut. But the Arcanos were relentless. They had been built for war. Every shot they fired was precise, deadly. Each attack came with the certainty that they would win. They had never expected this, humans fighting back with everything they had. "Captain," Turner said, his voice shaky, "they're targeting our engines." Amina's eyes narrowed. She knew this would happen. The Arcanos weren't just attacking to destroy, they were attacking to ensure Earth could never retaliate. They wanted to erase humanity from the galaxy. The engines were the key, and if they took them out, Earth was done. "Activate countermeasures," Amina ordered. "We're not going down that easy." The Juggernaut's countermeasures deployed, launching decoy missiles and jamming signals in an attempt to confuse the Arcanos. The decoy missiles streaked through space, causing the alien fleet to fire their weapons in confusion. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't flawless. But it bought the Juggernaut enough time. And then, Amina saw it, the opening she had been waiting for. "All units," she said, her voice cold, calculating. "Now, show them what Earth is made of." The fighter jets broke off their evasive maneuvers and converged on the Arcanos' flagship, Regal Ion, while the Juggernaut took its position. The first wave of fighters hit hard, their shots piercing the shields of the Regal Ion, creating small fractures. The Juggernaut powered forward, its enormous cannons coming online, ready to fire. The Arcanos retaliated with fury, their flagship launching a barrage of lasers that cut through space like 1,000 blades. The Juggernaut rocked under the hits, but Amina held steady, knowing that Earth had something the Arcanos didn't: surprise. The Juggernaut's cannons fired, one by one, and the shock wave of energy struck the Regalian shields. It wasn't enough to break them, but it was enough to shake them. The Regal Ion fired back, its massive guns pounding the Juggernaut's shield, but Amina had expected that. She had one shot. One chance. And she wasn't about to waste it. "Turner," Amina barked, her eyes fixed on the Arcanos' flagship. "Initiate EMP protocol. We disable their weapons systems." "But Captain..." "Do it," Amina shouted. "Or we'll all die today." Turner hesitated, but only for a second. Then, with a flick of his fingers, he activated the EMP pulse. The Regal Ion staggered as the EMP rippled through the fleet, shutting down the alien ship's energy systems. For the first time, Amina saw it, uncertainty in the Arcanos' movements. Their shields flickered, their weapons faltered, and the fighters began to break apart under the pressure. "Now!" Amina shouted. The Juggernaut unleashed everything it had, every missile, every energy blast, every weapon firing in a desperate, brutal wave. The first missiles hit the Regalian's weakened hull, punching through its once impenetrable armor. The alien flagship rocked, its shields flickering before failing entirely. The Juggernaut pressed its advantage, firing with brutal efficiency. But Amina wasn't done. She wasn't about to let the Arcanos think they had won. Not yet. "All units, form up. We're taking the fight to them," Amina ordered. The remaining human fighters regrouped, diving into the chaos, taking down Arcanos fighters with skill and precision. The tide of battle was shifting, but Amina knew the real fight was yet to come. General Caltrius, the leader of the Arcanos, would not retreat so easily. And then, a voice cut through the chaos. "Captain Hayes," a cold voice echoed over the comms. "You fight well for a species on the brink of extinction. But you're just delaying the inevitable. Surrender now, and we will spare your planet." Amina's eyes narrowed. It was Caltrius, the Arcanos general. The arrogance in his voice was unmistakable, but there was a hint of frustration as well. They hadn't expected Earth to fight back this fiercely. "We don't surrender," Amina replied, her voice as cold as the void of space. "You called us obsolete. You called us weak. But Earth still has teeth. And we're going to show you what it means to fight a war you can't win. The communications cut off, but the words lingered in the air. The Juggernaut fired again, and again, as the Arcanos flagship, Regal Ion, started to fall. The first of many hits scored against the once proud ship left it vulnerable. Caltrius's arrogance would be his downfall. As the battle raged on, Earth was no longer the helpless underdog. Earth was fighting for its life, and for the first time in centuries, the galaxy would learn the truth. Amina stood on the command deck of the Juggernaut, the pulse of battle echoing through her mind. The Arcanos fleet was in disarray, but the Regal Ion, the Arcanos flagship, was still intact, and the enemy's resolve had not yet been broken. General Caltrius had not expected Earth to retaliate with such force. He had underestimated humanity's ability to fight back. And now, with the tide of battle turning, Amina could feel the pressure mounting. The next strike would determine everything. "Captain," Turner's voice came through, sounding strained. "The Arcanos flagship is still operational. They're retreating into formation. It's a tactical regroup. They're preparing for their final push." Amina's eyes narrowed. She could feel Caltrius watching her from afar, assessing, calculating. The arrogance in his voice when he'd spoken over the comms had been palpable. But now, she knew something had changed. He wasn't as confident as he once was. His empire, built on the belief that no one could stand against their might, was faltering. "They're regrouping to break us," Amina muttered, more to herself than to anyone else. "They think we're weak. But they've forgotten one thing." She turned to face Turner, her voice low but filled with purpose. "We're not just fighting for survival. We're fighting for our future." On the bridge of the Regal Ion, General Caltrius paced back and forth, frustration seeping into his otherwise stoic demeanor. His fleet had been thrown into chaos by the unexpected human tactics, but he had always prided himself on his ability to adapt. He wasn't about to let Earth's primitive ships dictate the course of this battle. "Deploy the second wave," he commanded, his voice sharp. "Activate full power. Let's show them why the galaxy fears the Arcanos." As his orders were carried out, Caltrius watched as the Arcanos fleet shifted into formation, weapons primed. The Regalians' weapons glowed with lethal energy, preparing to deliver a final, overwhelming strike against Earth's forces. But as he watched, something gnawed at him, the unexpected resilience of the humans. In his experience, humanity was supposed to crumble, to cower in the face of true power. But this time, they had fought back with a determination that made his blood boil. And it wasn't just the Juggernaut, it was the human spirit itself, a force that even the Arcanos couldn't predict. "Captain," his communications officer said, breaking Caltrius from his thoughts. "The Juggernaut is maneuvering into position. They've abandoned evasive tactics. It looks like they're going for broke." Caltrius' eyes darkened. "So be it. Prepare to fire." Amina watched the status screen as the Regal Ion locked into position, its weapons charging. She knew the Arcanos were about to unleash hell. It was now or never. There would be no second chance. Earth's defenses were already stretched thin, and if they couldn't take down the Regal Ion now, the Arcanos would have their way. "Turner," Amina said, her voice steady, "I need every ounce of power we have. Engage full burn on the engines. We're going in." She watched as the crew scrambled to adjust the ship's systems, pushing the ancient Juggernaut beyond its limits. The ship groaned under the strain, but Amina didn't flinch. This was her moment. Earth's moment. The Juggernaut surged forward, its massive hull cutting through space like a bullet, aimed directly at the heart of the Arcanos flagship. The Regalians' weapons flared, unleashing a blinding torrent of energy. But Amina had anticipated this. She was counting on it. "Deploy all countermeasures," she ordered. "We need to blind them." The Juggernaut released a cloud of decoy drones, each designed to jam the Arcanos' targeting systems. The blasts from the Regalians' cannons hit the decoys, their energy rippling outward, momentarily distorting the battlefield. "We've got their attention," Turner reported. "They're firing blind. We've got a window." Amina smiled grimly. Take it. The Juggernaut fired, the blast striking the Regalian's weakened shields. The alien ship staggered under the force of the impact, but it held. Amina clenched her jaw. It wasn't enough. Not yet. But they were close. So close. Amina's mind raced. The Arcanos had underestimated Earth's ingenuity. They had thought the Juggernaut would be an easy target. They had thought humanity's strategy would be predictable. But they hadn't accounted for one thing: humanity could adapt. Humanity could learn, evolve, and, above all, fight. Captain, Turner called again, urgency in his voice. They're reinforcing their shields. It's no use. We won't break through unless we get creative. Amina didn't hesitate. She knew exactly what to do. Turner, prepare to engage the secondary cannon. It's the only shot we have left. When I say, fire. Turner hesitated, glancing nervously at the control panel. The secondary cannon hasn't been tested in years. Are you sure? Just do it, Amina snapped. This is Earth's last stand. We don't have a choice. The Juggernaut's engines screamed as they pushed forward, gaining momentum. Amina's eyes locked onto the screen, every inch of her focus on the target ahead. She had no room for doubt. No room for hesitation. This was it. Now. Amina barked. The secondary cannon fired, a massive beam of raw energy streaking toward the Regal Ion. The Arcanos' flagship's shields flared, but they weren't strong enough. The beam slammed into the heart of the Regal Ion, its massive hull cracking under the force of the blast. The ship shuddered as if the very core of its being had been struck. Caltrius roared in fury as the Regal Ion lurched, its power systems failing. The shields flickered, weakened beyond repair. He watched as the human ship closed in, its weapons continuing to hammer at the Regalian's defenses. But something inside Caltrius snapped. He was done waiting. Done playing games. If humanity wanted a fight, they would get it. All units, deploy ground forces. Prepare for a final assault, Caltrius ordered. The humans will die on their feet. I will make sure of it. The Juggernaut fired again, its energy blasts striking the Regal Ion with unrelenting precision. The enemy flagship was burning now, its systems failing one by one. Amina's heart raced, but she refused to let her emotions cloud her judgment. She couldn't afford to be distracted. Earth was still in danger. They hadn't won yet. Captain, we've breached their main hull, Turner announced. We're through their defenses. Amina's voice hardened. We don't stop. We don't back down. She looked at the damage on the screen, watching as the Arcanos flagship began to crumble. They thought they could break us. They thought we would bow down. Her voice grew colder with every word. But they don't understand. Humanity doesn't surrender. The Juggernaut closed in for the final strike, its weapons charging one last time. The battle had been long, and the Regal Ion had been a formidable opponent, but now, Earth's victory was within reach. Turner, prepare to fire the final shot, Amina ordered, her voice steady but intense. We're ready, Captain, Turner said, his fingers poised over the controls. Amina took a deep breath, her mind focused on the task at hand. This wasn't just about victory, it was about sending a message to the galaxy. To the Arcanos. And to anyone else who might think humanity was weak. Fire, Amina commanded. The blast rang out, a final, earth-shattering explosion that sent shockwaves through space. The Regal Ion erupted in a burst of flame and debris, the once proud flagship of the Arcanos Empire breaking apart before their eyes. The battle was over. And humanity had won. The remnants of the Regal Ion drifted through space, broken and battered. Its once gleaming surface was now a mangled wreck, the symbol of the Arcanos Empire's pride reduced to little more than debris. Amina stood at the command console of the Juggernaut, her fingers tight around the edge as she watched the aftermath unfold on the screens before her. The ship was holding, but barely. The crew was exhausted, their energy spent in the heat of battle, yet there was no time to rest. We did it, Turner said, his voice filled with awe as he watched the disintegration of the Arcanos flagship. Captain, we actually did it. Amina nodded slowly, her gaze never leaving the wreckage. We survived. But we're not done yet. The rest of the Arcanos fleet was retreating, their formations scattered and broken. But Amina could feel the danger. Caltrius, though beaten, would never give up so easily. The Arcanos were known for their ruthlessness, and Amina knew they wouldn't let the loss of their flagship go unpunished. Captain, the remaining Arcanos ships are regaining formation, Turner said, breaking through her thoughts. It looks like they're preparing for another assault. Amina's fingers brushed against the console, and she steeled herself. They're regrouping, but they won't have the advantage this time. We know their tactics. We've adapted. And we'll do it again. Amina turned to her crew. The Juggernaut was battered, its systems malfunctioning, but there was no choice. They had to push forward. Earth's survival depended on it. Prepare the ship for the final strike, she ordered, her voice steady. We're not waiting for them to come to us. We're going to meet them head-on. The Arcanos fleet had pulled back, but the retreat was only temporary. Caltrius was not a leader to admit defeat, not in front of his empire. Even as his flagship crumbled in the wake of the Juggernaut's relentless assault, he had already mobilized his remaining forces for one final push. He would finish this battle, once and for all. General, we've received communication from the Emperor, Caltrius's aide said, stepping forward with a holocom device. He demands a swift end to this human threat. Caltrius didn't respond at first. His thoughts were elsewhere, on the humans who had defied him, who had survived longer than he expected. A look of frustration crossed his face as he stared at the transmission. He had underestimated them, yes, but he would not make that mistake again. We'll finish this, Caltrius muttered, his voice dark. The humans may have taken down Regal Ion, but their victory will be short-lived. He turned to his remaining fleet. Prepare for the final assault. We'll strike their weak points, destroy their command ship, and then their defenses will crumble. Amina stood before her crew, a deep sense of urgency now driving her. The battle was not over. Earth had won a significant victory, but the true test was still ahead. Caltrius wasn't going to retreat. He wasn't the type to back down from a fight, especially not one he had lost. The remaining Arcanos ships were heading back to regroup, and Amina knew that if they didn't act fast, they'd be overwhelmed. We've only got one shot, Amina said, her eyes scanning the faces of her crew. We need to strike first. We need to hit them where it hurts. The crew nodded. There was no hesitation now, only resolve. Prepare the Juggernaut, Amina ordered. We're not waiting for them to make the first move. We'll take the fight to them. The Juggernaut moved forward again, the ship's engines roaring as it blasted through space. Amina watched the formation of Arcanos ships on the screen, calculating their movements, their weaknesses. It was clear now that they were preparing to launch a final, all-out assault on Earth. They would throw everything they had at the Juggernaut, their final gambit. But Amina was ready. Earth was ready. Engage full power on the main cannons, Amina commanded. We've got one shot to end this. The Juggernaut powered forward, the immense ship moving faster than its outdated systems should have allowed. But the crew knew what was at stake. Every human aboard this vessel knew that they were fighting for the survival of their planet, and no amount of alien firepower could break their resolve. We're in range, Captain, Turner said. Ready to fire on your mark. Amina took a deep breath. This was the moment that would define everything. Earth's fate hung in the balance, and there could be no hesitation. Fire, she commanded. The Juggernaut unleashed its full force. The blast of energy shot through space, hitting the lead Arcanos ship directly. The impact was catastrophic. The ship exploded in a burst of light, sending debris scattering across the void. But Amina wasn't finished. She had studied the Arcanos' tactics. She knew where to strike. Now, the second wave, Amina ordered. Focus fire on the remaining ship's weak points. We've got to finish them. The Juggernaut's secondary weapons fired, tearing into the remaining Arcanos fleet. Ship after ship fell, their shields buckling under the relentless barrage. Caltrius's ships were outmatched, outsmarted, and outgunned. The human force, though fewer in numbers, fought with a tenacity that even the Arcanos couldn't match. "Captain," Turner said, his voice tight with tension. "It's working. They're starting to fall back." Amina's heart pounded in her chest. The Arcanos were retreating. It was happening. Humanity was on the verge of victory. But there was still one more fight to come. Caltrius, now cornered, would not surrender. He would fight until the last ship was gone. The Juggernaut moved again, its weapon systems charging. Caltrius had one final play to make. He had mobilized the remaining ships for a counterattack. The Juggernaut had been effective, yes, but it was still vulnerable. Earth's old technology had done its job, but now it was up to Amina and her crew to finish the job. The remaining Arcanos ships surged forward, their guns blazing as they fired with everything they had left. But Amina knew this would be the final test. There could be no turning back. "Brace for impact," she shouted. The Juggernaut took the first round of fire, its shields flaring and crackling under the weight of the blast. Amina gritted her teeth. They could survive this. They had to survive this. "Captain, we're holding," Turner shouted, his voice a mixture of relief and disbelief. "Shields are holding, but only just." Amina's eyes darted to the screen. The remaining Arcanos ships were closing in, preparing for their final assault. This was it. Earth's future depended on this moment. The Juggernaut pushed forward, its weapons firing in rapid succession. Amina's strategy was simple. She would engage the Arcanos head-on, keep them focused on the Juggernaut, and use every advantage she had to keep them distracted long enough for Earth's fleet to strike. Amina's hand was steady on the control console. "Prepare to fire the EMP cannon," she commanded, her voice cool and calculating. The Juggernaut's EMP cannon charged, and as it fired, the remaining Arcanos ships faltered, their systems temporarily disabled. Amina grinned, knowing that this was her chance. "Now," she shouted. "Focus fire on their engines." With one final, coordinated effort, the Juggernaut fired everything it had, hitting the Arcanos ships in their most vulnerable spots. One by one, the ships exploded, their shields failing, their engines overloaded. Caltrius's forces were finally defeated. The battle was over. Humanity had won. The last of the Arcanos fleet was crumbling, their ships falling apart under the relentless assault of the Juggernaut and Earth's remaining forces. The battle had raged for hours, but now, with the enemy's retreating ships scattered and broken, it was clear, Earth had won. But victory did not feel like triumph. It felt like relief, a fleeting sense of peace amidst the chaos of war. Amina stood at the command center, watching as the final remnants of the Arcanos forces fled into the depths of space. The wreckage of their ships floated like debris in the void, but she couldn't relax. Not yet. The Juggernaut was battered, its systems barely holding together after the brutal engagement. But more than that, she could still hear the sound of Caltrius's voice in her mind. "This isn't over," he had said. "The galaxy will never forgive you for defying the Arcanos." She wasn't sure if he truly believed that, but she knew one thing for sure: they weren't safe yet. "Captain," Turner said, his voice steady despite the obvious exhaustion in his tone, "we've lost most of our external communication systems. We've done it. We've held the line." Amina's fingers tightened around the console. "We've held the line, yes. But this battle has just begun." He looked at her, confusion flickering in his eyes. "What do you mean, Captain?" She turned to him, her face hard as steel. "Caltrius will return. We've broken his fleet, but the Arcanos won't forgive this. They'll come back, and next time, they'll come harder. They'll bring everything they have." Turner was quiet for a moment, digesting her words. "What do we do then? We can't keep up this fight forever." Amina's eyes flickered to the window, staring out into the dark expanse of space. Earth's once proud cities had been reduced to rubble by countless invasions over the years. The alien fleets had come and gone, and each time, humanity had fought back. But this had been different. The Arcanos had underestimated them, and now that their most formidable forces had been shattered, the rest of the galaxy would look at Earth differently. But would it be enough? We adapt, Amina said, her voice firm. Humanity doesn't just survive, we fight. And next time, we'll be ready. This wasn't just a victory. It was a message. Elsewhere, on the regal Ion, Caltrius seethed as he watched the retreating Arcanos fleet. His ship, once the pride of the Empire, had been reduced to a burning hulk, its weapon systems completely disabled. He had failed, and it was a bitter pill to swallow. For a moment, he stood frozen before his crew, who looked at him with uncertainty. He could feel their gaze, questioning, waiting for him to make his move. Prepare to initiate emergency warp, Caltrius growled, his fists clenched at his sides. We'll retreat to the outer systems. Regroup. The humans will pay for this. They have no idea what they've started. His second-in-command, a tall, imposing figure named Drax, stepped forward, his face impassive. General, we've lost the battle, but we've not lost the war. Our fleets are scattered, but they are still intact. We'll rebuild. Caltrius turned sharply toward him, fury blazing in his eyes. Rebuild? Rebuild what? Our pride is shattered. The humans have shown the galaxy that we are not invincible. I will not let this go unpunished. Drax hesitated, then spoke again, his voice calm but firm. General, the Emperor will demand a response. We must take a step back, reevaluate, and plan for the next strike. If we act in haste, we risk more than we gain. Caltrius's rage flickered but did not subside. I don't care what the Emperor demands. I will crush them. Earth will fall, and I will be the one to bring that ruin. Back on the Juggernaut, Amina stood at the helm, her thoughts racing. Earth's forces had done the impossible, repelling a near unbeatable enemy. And yet, even as the Arcanos scattered, she could feel the weight of what lay ahead. The victory was sweet, but it was only a momentary respite. Captain, Turner's voice came through again, softer now, almost uncertain. What if Caltrius was right? What if they really will come back stronger? Amina's eyes met his, and for the first time in hours, she allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. He was right in one thing, she said. They'll come back. But when they do, they'll find Earth waiting for them. We'll be ready. There was a long pause, and Amina could feel the weight of the words settling in her chest. Humanity had always been outnumbered, outgunned. And yet, here they were, still standing, still fighting. We need to rebuild, Amina continued, her tone hardening once again. We need to fortify Earth. Develop new weapons, new technologies. But most importantly, we need to build an army. An army that the Arcanos won't be able to defeat. We will turn this victory into a message not just to Caltrius, but to anyone who dares to underestimate us. Turner's expression softened, and he nodded slowly. We'll do it, Captain. Whatever it takes. Amina's gaze turned back to the screen, watching as the scattered debris of the Arcanos fleet drifted farther and farther away. There was no time for celebration. Not yet. The galaxy was vast, its powers many. And while the Arcanos' empire had been humbled, Amina knew that Earth was only one player in a much larger game. The victory over Caltrius was significant, but it was only the first of many battles to come. She couldn't afford to rest. Activate all communication channels, she ordered. I want every surviving fleet to make contact. We need to know who stands with us. As the channels opened, Amina's mind raced. The war against the Arcanos might be over for now, but it was far from finished. The universe was full of empires and forces with their own agendas, their own rivalries, and their own desires for control. Earth had no allies, only fleeting moments of unity in the face of a shared threat. But one thing was certain, humanity would never be powerless again. No matter how many times the Arcanos came back, no matter how many battles lay ahead, they would never again underestimate the strength, the resolve, the spirit of humanity. Earth had proven that today. Caltrius, now far from the battlefield, seated in silence. The galaxy would remember the defeat. They would see the power of Earth, the strength of its people, the refusal to surrender. But they would also know that Caltrius was not finished. He would return, and when he did, he would come with everything he had. He would leave no survivors. He would destroy them all. But that was a problem for another day. For now, Amina stood at the helm of the Juggernaut, watching as the Earth fleet regrouped, preparing for the next step. Humanity's future was uncertain, but Amina knew one thing: they would fight. And as long as they fought, they would never be conquered.